let's say we have a ground speed of 114 knots. How far will we fly in, let's say, 7.5 minutes. How far are we going to go? So here's what we're going to do. You have your ground speed here, which is already a time per hour. So you can see here the 60 means units per hour. So we'll go ahead and line that up with 114. And it's at 7.5 minutes. So we'll look here, there's 70 and 80, which in this problem, we're going to interpret that as 7.5 in between. So if you zoom in on it, you'll notice it's 14.25 miles. So that's one of the easier problems. Let's do a harder one. Let's say you have a ground speed, let's say 120 knots. This time I want to know how long will it take me to go 300 nautical miles. Well, since we're given a speed, we're going to set it up with the 60 here. Boom. Step one done. Now, we need to find out how long it's going to go 300 miles. As you recall in the previous, what I said before, the outer ring represents units, the inner represents time. So here's 30, which in this case, we're going to interpret that as 300 nautical miles, which comes down to 15. And from what I just said here, you're going 120 knots an hour. There's no way it could possibly take 15 minutes to go 300 miles. So we're like, okay, let's say 150 minutes. That answer makes more sense. So to answer this question, it will take you 150 minutes or 2 hours, 30 minutes to fly 300 nautical miles. All right, let's go ahead and do a similar one, but this time, instead of talking about speed, we're going to talk about fuel. We have 13.2 gallons per hour fuel burn, and the time en route is going to be 3 hours, 30 minutes. And I want to know how much fuel I'll need to make this flight. Well, this time what we're going to do is line up our rate with our fuel burn this time. So outside, it's no longer speed or distance, it's now fuel burn. So there we go. Boom, 13.2 gallons per hour. And now we look for a 3.5 hour time en route. So just 3 hours, 3:30. And so around here, we can say it's approximately just 46.5 gallons for this 3.5 hour flight. Okay, we'll do a few more problems and then we'll call it good. So here's a tricky one. I want you to find the ground speed if we travel 60 nautical miles in So in this question, what we're going to do is, I'm on the outer ring, I'm going to find 60 miles. I'm going to line it up with 40 minutes. Then when you jump back to the 1 hour mark, you'll see it's 90 knots an hour. All right, I'm going to go do one more problem. This one's going to be the most advanced one you'll see on your knowledge test as well as your check ride. So let's get into it. So your ground speed will be 145 knots. Your fuel burn is 13 gallons. Let's just use the term GPH. There we go. And your distance is 270 nautical miles. So now the question is, how much fuel will you need for this trip? So what we're missing right now is time, and that's what we need to try to find. So as you can see here, we have three numbers, we got ground speed, fuel, and distance. Since we're trying to find out how much fuel we're going to need, we're going to temporarily ignore this right here. And what we're going to do is we need to do something with these two numbers to get our time. So what we can do is, let's see here, 145 knots, line that up here. Distance 270 nautical miles, which is approximately right there. Sorry, one sec. Boom. So we get approximately 112 minutes. So we're going to write that down. And now we pull this number over, and then we'll get our answer very shortly. So now instead of lining up our rate to 145 knots an hour, we're going to set it to 13 gallons an hour. And now we go over to 112 minutes, wherever that is on here. 112 minutes, boom. So that's approximately 24.2 gallons. So that's that one. All right, so now we're going to be using the backside of your E6B, the wind correction side. So we're going to start easy again, and we're going to go hard. So let me put the parameters on the board again. We have a ground, true airspeed of 120 knots. And your course is and your wind will be 300 at 10 knots. Find ground speed. So here we go. Before we can jump into this problem, we're gonna have to go over this part of E6B. So if you're not sure on your knowledge test, what you can do is you can just read here. It will tell you what to do. But so here's what I'm gonna do right now. Up here is you're gonna be your true index. That's where you set your heading for wind or your course. Down here, this is the grommet. Whatever that grommet is hovering over, that will be your ground speed. The lines to the side indicate wind correction angle. Down here, it tells you how to find your compass heading. So down here, in a future problem, we'll be using this. So what you would do is you would start with your true course, add or subtract your wind correction angle, which gives you your true heading. Then you subtract or add your magnetic variation to get your magnetic heading. Then you add or subtract your compass deviation to get your compass heading. So for this problem, we got a true airspeed of 120 knots with a course of 180. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna set your course first, boom. Actually, sorry, correction, we wanna set wind first. So let's go 300 at 10. So what you wanna do is set your wind heading first and place your grommet on 100 so you get an easy number. And go up 10 units. So just above 110, we're gonna go ahead and make a pencil mark. You can't see it, but I marked it. Next thing you wanna do is set your course. Now that's set. And now what you wanna do is that pencil mark you just made, you wanna move it so it touches your true airspeed. So in this case, we got it on 120 knots. So now what we're gonna do right now is look at the grommet, and you can see it's hovering just over 125 knots. So for this question, your ground speed will be 120 knots. All right, so this is basically how you would use this on your flight or your knowledge test. But that's just the easy stuff. The next problem is gonna be a lot trickier. We're gonna use everything I mentioned on this E6B. So here we go. We have a true airspeed of 135. Wind will be, actually we're missing, true course will be 177. Your wind will be 250 at 8. Variation, we'll say 13 degrees east. And our compass deviation will be +1. And after getting all these numbers, we're going to need to to find out how much fuel we're going to use for a flight that is, what did I say here? 250 nautical miles. Fuel will be find. So we need to find. So here we go. Start from the beginning. Step 1. Look at your wind. We'll set 250 knots right here. So 250 onto heading. Step 2. We'll place the grommet over 100 to get us a friendly number and go up 8 units and plot it right there. So now we're done with the wind. Next step is we're going to go over to our course of 177. And we're going to place our dot we just made on our true airspeed of 135 knots. Okay, there we go. And something I left out, well, also we need to find here is not only the fuel burn, but we also want to find our compass heading. So now, as you can see here, we have a ground speed of approximately 132 knots. Actually, yeah, 132 knots. And then we have a wind correction angle to the right of 3 degrees. So we can write down our wind correction. So now that we have that, we can go through the bottom portion to find our compass heading. So start of our true course, and add or subtract our wind correction angle. So this time we're going to add. So this is the first step is. So we're done with wind correction angle, so therefore we have our true heading of 180. Next step is we got to take into account variation. So now we're going to go ahead and find our magnetic heading, which is equal to this number right here. If it's the east, you subtract, so do that. So now we have our magnetic heading, we're going to go find our compass heading. Because we have the deviation here, so we're going to go 167 plus 1, which goes 168. So your compass heading, after going through all these steps here, is going to be 168. So that's what you're going to try to fly on your compass. And now back to this part, where we have to find our fuel burn. As you remember in the previous problem we did, when we were using the flight computer side, when you have 3 units, eliminate the one that you're trying to find. So we're trying to find fuel burn. We're going to ignore the fuel parameter for now. So we're going to only look at ground speed and distance. So what we're going to do is set our E6B to 132 knots. And look at the time it takes to go 250 nautical miles, which is over here. And we get about 114 minutes. Now we can take into account our fuel burn and just set it to 10 gallons an hour. In 114 minutes, we get we get 19 gallons. As you look here, 114 lines up with 19. So that's it with the backside of the E6B for wind correction. It's easy as it gets. Just if you don't know what to do, read the instructions up here. If you're asked to find heading, just read down here. You should be good to go.